If there is one thing that I cannot stand, it is a virtue signal. Us normal people, we call it deception or lies, but those terms are far too triggering to deacons at Woke United Methodist. Those terms have negative connotations. Instead of calling themselves deceivers, we prefer to be called virtue signalers. According to the Oxford Dictionary, which was forced to define this ridiculous term to appease the deacons, virtue signaling, it is defined as public expression of opinions designed to illustrate one's good character. Translation: it's bullshit. Mainstream media outlets, they use the tactic of virtue signaling to make us think that they really care about a particular issue. For example, John Kerry, he pretends to be this big believer in global warming. Well, Casey, don't you mean climate change? Yeah, I keep forgetting they had to change the terminology here. They used to call it global warming, but something called winter kept disproving their claims that the earth was about to explode. But anyway, John Kerry, he pretends to be this big believer in climate change. He wants you to forfeit your gas-powered scooter. He wants farmers to quit breeding cows because their powerful flatulence is causing the mercury in thermometers to explode. Yet for some reason, John Kerry, he doesn't mind flying around on private jets with our fearless leader, John Biden. He's not worried about those emissions. He also doesn't seem to mind the emissions that escape the whoopee cushion every morning on The View. That is a prime example of virtue signaling. Now tonight, we will be given another example, courtesy of the worldwide leader in woke, ESPN. For the past few years, ESPN has led their dwindling audience to believe that they really care about women's sports. A couple of weeks ago, they awarded some dude with purple hair and a group of activists disguised as female soccer players with the Arthur Ashe Courage Award. Oh, they're so courageous. They won their fight for reparations. Now it's time to convince the government to give reparations to birthing persons who choose to identify with a marginalized group. As longtime viewers of this channel know, ESPN proudly claims to be the home of the WNBA. We are a proud partner of Waste Management. All ESPN offices across America utilize the services offered by the WNBA dump. Call me a skeptic, but I don't judge people based on their words. I formulate my personal opinions based on their actions. Later tonight, ESPN, they are pretending to put their virtue signaling words into action. 11 o'clock tonight, there's going to be a very special episode of SportsCenter broadcast on ESPN. Casey, what the hell is SportsCenter? It used to be a show about sports, kind of like CNN used to be a network that was dedicated to news. SportsCenter used to be the place where careers in sports media were born. Dan Patrick, Stuart Scott, the insufferable Keith Olbermann, Craig Ferguson, Rich Eisen, all of them got their start in national sports media behind the desk at SportsCenter. But did you notice what all of them have in common? Besides Keith Olbermann, who is completely comfortable with his feminine side, all these other hosts, they were infected with toxic masculinity. Now sure, there have been female anchors on SportsCenter through the years, but there has never been an episode of SportsCenter that was devoid of toxic masculinity. Tonight, ESPN is going to accomplish another first, and you guys know how much the shit fucks love a first. Tonight's episode of SportsCenter, it's going to feature an all-female cast. Also going to feature an all-female production crew, all-female writers. What will these females be talking about? All-female sports. If you're looking for updates on NFL training camp, do not tune into SportsCenter tonight. If you're wanting scores in Major League Baseball, do not tune into SportsCenter tonight. For 60 minutes, toxic masculinity will cease to exist at ESPN. They will be covering nothing but female sports. Last I checked, ESPN was a network that was struggling. They are literally laying off hundreds, maybe thousands of employees as we speak. Ratings at ESPN are in the pooper. In the 40-plus year history of this network, ESPN has never been this irrelevant. And you mean to tell me their solution to this problem is dedicating an episode of SportsCenter to female sports? If solidifying your status as a huge embarrassing failure is the goal here, ESPN has found their way to succeed. This will be an unmitigated disaster. For starters, there is not enough interest in female sports to fill a full hour of television. What are they going to do here? Show highlights of airball dunks in the WNBA? Are they going to show highlights of the World Cup? They can't even get Americans to care about America in the World Cup. This week, I have seen countless articles throughout the mainstream media claiming Americans are disgusted with this group of political activists and are not supporting them in the World Cup. And don't even get me started with America's interest in the WNBA because it does not exist. Now, ESPN has yet to announce who's going to be hosting SportsCenter tonight. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it ain't going to be Sage Steele. I would imagine it's going to be the dynamic duo of disaster, Malika Andrews and Elle Duncan. They're going to give the dozens of women watching exactly what they need, not what they want, what they need. Lectures on abortion and what to do when you're encountered with mansplaining. My inside sources tell me Elle Duncan, she has a special segment prepared where she teaches women how to become a marginalized victim. Me too, me too. I don't want to focus too much on the god-awful content that ESPN will present tonight. I want to focus on the fact that this is complete bullshit. This is nothing but a virtue signal from the worldwide leader in woke. Like I said, ESPN wants us to believe that they really care about women. The only reason ESPN is doing this is so they can climax the woke boner on Twitter and receive praise from men pretending to be women. They're damn sure not doing this to appease their core audience, which used to consist of real men. Well, actually, maybe ESPN is trying to appease their core audience. Most normal men, we turned off ESPN years ago. Maybe ESPN is doing this to appease the pretenders. The truth is, ESPN does not give a shit about real women. If they did, they wouldn't be celebrating Megan Rapinoe, who is actively trying to destroy female sports. If ESPN cared about real women, they wouldn't be celebrating Leah Thomas. Back in March, ESPN put together a nice little segment for Women's History Month. Who was their guest of honor? Leah Thomas. Do I need to sit here and explain the conflict of interest here? It would not surprise me if ESPN organized this exclusive episode, an all-female SportsCenter, meant to give women a chance, and they hired Leah Thomas as the host. This is SportsCenter. I am Leah Thomas. Ignore the beard. I am a woman. I find the timing of this announcement to be rather ironic. ESPN, they are known to promote things, especially special events. They're known to promote them weeks in advance, at least days in advance. Hell, I couldn't watch the NBA playoffs this year without being bombarded with commercials about the WNBA dump. But this special episode of SportsCenter, it was not announced to my knowledge until today. That's kind of strange. I don't pretend to know why, and I'm not saying that these two things have anything to do with each other. More than likely they don't. But over the last few months, ESPN has been absolutely crucified by normal people for their constant glorification of Leah Thomas. Earlier today, a young woman named Paula Scanlon, she testified in front of Congress. And no, her birth name was not Paul. Paula is a real woman. It is not the name she selected when she woke up from her transition. But young Paula, she was explaining to Congress the trauma she was forced to endure by sharing a locker room with Leah Thomas. She explained how uncomfortable she felt watching a giant polish their muffler in the female locker room. She explained how some women were so uncomfortable they chose to change clothes in the closet, which I find that to be ironic. The last 20 years, the mainstream media, they have been encouraging people to come out of the closet. Now, they're making women so uncomfortable they are hiding in the closet. Paula Scanlon mentioned something that is supposedly touching to the woke heart. ESPN, they were overly supportive of this movement several years ago. Watch for yourself.
Today, any discussion maintaining the sanctity of women's spaces is labeled transphobic, bigoted, and hateful. What's bigoted and hateful is the discrimination against women and the efforts to erase women and our equal opportunities, dignity, and safe spaces. One might ask, why do I speak so passionately about issues that seem hypothetical, or some may perceive as only impacting a small number of women? This is not hypothetical. This is real. I know women who have lost roster spots and spots on the podium. I know of women with sexual trauma who are adversely impacted by having biological males in their locker room without their consent. I know this because I am one of these women. I was sexually assaulted on June 3rd of 2016. I was only 16 years old. I was able to forgive my attacker, but violence against women still exists. Let us not forget the viral Me Too movement that empowered female victims to speak up.
You just heard this young woman's testimony. You heard what she had to go through as a victim of sexual assault, being forced to share a locker room with Leah Thomas. The same Leah Thomas that ESPN honored during Women's History Month. Someone please explain to me, someone please tell me how much ESPN cares about women. Organizing an all-female sports center, that is nothing but a virtue signal. It's a lie. If ESPN really cared about women, they would be fighting against transgender involvement in sports. If ESPN really cared about women, they wouldn't be promoting and celebrating Megan Rapinoe. They would be celebrating Riley Gaines, a young woman who displays actual courage. If ESPN really cared about the WNBA, they wouldn't go weeks every summer without featuring them on national television. The truth is, ESPN only cares about women when it's convenient, when it fits their narrative. You want to know why they are doing this in July and not October? You want to know why they're doing this in July and not during Women's History Month, which takes place in March? Because July, especially the end of July, is a dead period in sports. It's easier to pretend to care about women now than it is in October or in the middle of NFL and NBA season. I wish Showbuzz Daily was still around because it is going to be interesting to see the ratings for tonight's episode of SportsCenter. I doubt ESPN will release them publicly. If I had to guess, this is going to draw less than 200,000 viewers. People are tired of the political garbage at ESPN. People tune into ESPN for coverage of sports. They don't tune in to see highlights of the WNBA dump and to be given lectures by someone like Malika Andrews. But give me your thoughts. ESPN promoting an all-female sports center. Is this a virtue signal? Or does this prove ESPN actually cares about women? Also, give me your best guess. What are the ratings going to be tonight for SportsCenter? You let me know. Sound off in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com, KC_BTL84 on Twitter, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.